Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. We're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And our guest today is Don Woodlock. He's head of global healthcare solutions at InterSystems. Welcome, Don.
Hello, John. Happy to be here.
Yeah, excited for this discussion. I think everyone knows you. They've seen your stuff, seen your content. You put out some really great content over the years.
Great, thank you.
For those who don't, tell us about yourself and InterSystems.
So I'm Don Woodlock. I've been in our industry my whole career. I worked at IDXG Healthcare, now InterSystems. And InterSystems is, we refer to as a creative data technology company.
Awesome. So tell us, how do hospital systems turn the large amounts of data that's out there that they already have into a better asset?
Well, I think you have to, treat it like an asset. Apply resources to looking at data quality, to cleaning it up, to putting in the formats like FHIR and OMOP that your folks can put to use, putting it in the dashboards and decentralize it, govern it properly. So I just think investing in data as a strategic asset will pay off dividends.
It's interesting you say that because I think we have treated data more as a compliance rather than an asset.
Sure.
Is that how you kind of view it?
Sure. I think that we do what we have to do, which is take care of patients. So at an individual patient level, I think we focused on making the data work for that. But I think we have opportunities with AI, with population health, with analytics, with research, where data in aggregate can also provide value if it's in good shape. And so that's sort of taking it to the next level, I would say.
And what do you think are some of the barriers that these hospital systems, the health systems are facing to, that kind of have prevented them or, made it hard for them to do what you described?
I do think that there are data sharing obstacles, organizational alignment, legal alignment, data sharing agreements, things like that do get in the way. I think that technology can be difficult, to transform the data from one place to another and that sort of thing. I mean, thankfully, regulations are on our side, forcing us EMR vendors to kind of open up and implement FHIR and things like that, I think will help. And investing in it sensibly, I think will also help us make more sense out of data.
It's interesting because you're right that I think there are organizational challenges. Yep. There's some legal frameworks, but when I look at it, if there's ever been a will to share the data and use the data, they've been able to find a way. And often the legal is just actually them an excuse for why they don't want to really do it.
Sure.
Does that what I mean?
Well, I think that we broke through one use case, which is I'm a doctor and I need to know about this patient from data everywhere. So national networks, Epicare, everywhere, Commonwealth, e-Exchange, all that stuff I think has done a good job with that use case. So now I think we just need to move on to other use cases because we know we can do it.
Interesting. So let's talk about AI assistants. How do AI assistants help providers, better understand the patient in front of them at the point of care?
So I think the success with interoperability, or at least our success so far, causes a problem. You basically get too much data digested. We have this service which connects to the national networks, and we keep track of our largest patient. And the largest patient had 5,800 documents that came back when we sort of asked the national network. So what are you going to do as a clinician with that level of data? You can't do anything.
You're going to spend a year going through.
Yeah, exactly. You won't. I mean, so part of it is parsing it, so we can see the problems, meds, allergies. But part of it is AI. AI would be happy to go through that many documents and answer questions. So I think AI is a really good new tool we have in our toolbox to essentially deal with this high volume of data and make sense of it and make it useful. So I think AI assistants are coming at the right time. When we have this level of data overload, AI can really, it's just the tool that's well-timed, showed up at the right time.
Yeah. From an InterSystems perspective, how do you see AI assistants evolving? You talked about kind of processing the vast amount of data, which I think is great. We also see the kind of ambient documentation side.
Yes.
Are those the main two areas you're seeing assistants, or are there other areas you're
I think there's
at?
the patient area also. I think ambient is a big hit. I think that's our first kind of killer app for Gen AI in healthcare, which is awesome. I think this chart summarization AI assistant will be next. That's my feeling. But I also think there's also a lot on the patient front, to have a more natural way to interact with the health system or your payer or whoever that can get some jobs done for you, answer questions, make sense of your clinical lab results. So I think that's kind of a third area. I don't know which one is going to come in what order, but I think that's a high, low-hanging fruit area as well.
Interesting. And what do you think are some of the challenges that AI assistants face, and how do we overcome these challenges?
Well, I think anything with AI is on a journey of trust, I would say. So I think as we introduce AI assistants, we need to sort of walk up the ladder of trust, let's say. And so we've focused in our first release basically on a just the facts AI assistant.
Okay.
So instead of kind of advising a clinician what they should do next or anything like that, it's just sort of answer the questions based on the patient chart, implementation. So I think a just the facts type of thing takes us one step on the trust journey. I think we'll go farther on this journey, but I think it's a good place to start and helps us build that trust.
Yeah, in some ways, it's almost creating a culture for the clinician, that they're so used to doing it themselves or searching for it themselves.
Yes.
It's interesting to use the word trust. You're building that trust with the just the facts approach, and then over time, they start to trust it, and that enables you to do more? Is that kind of how you're going into
if you think about ambient, ambient is pretty safe because there's a human in the loop that was just there, just recorded the office visit and is editing and signing the note. AI assistant is a little bit different because the AI is kind of combing through the chart and giving you answers to questions. So there's a little bit more importance that this be right. And so that's why trust it's important in ambient also.
Sure.
But I think this takes it to the next level where it really has to be accurate because of just the use case.
It's interesting you say that because I was thinking about this as well.
Yeah.
In the ambient use case, why is it so powerful? It's because it's literally first-party data.
Sure, exactly.
that you just did yourself.
It's a human in the loop, and it's the right human. I was just there.
Exactly.
Type of thing. The other thing about ambient is that this workflow, like if you think of dictation or voice recognition or scribes, this workflow of somebody helping me write my note has been in place for decades.
Sure.
So this is just like the fourth generation, let's say, of that workflow. So the workflow's fine, the legal issues are fine, there's a great human in the loop. There's a lot of things, in addition to it being a great technology, there's a lot of other things it had going for it that makes it such a smooth adoption for our industry.
Yeah. But you're right. When you bring an AI assistant to the vast amount of data that's out there, that's a different, value proposition, and it's a different challenge from a quality data standpoint. So tell me more about the AI assistant tool, and I know you have some early customer feedback. I'd love to hear kind of how they are receiving that tool.
Yeah, sure. So we released an AI assistant, like you're saying. The feedback has been awesome. I mean, it's kind of a no training type of thing. You just ask your questions, you get good quality answers. One of the things that happens is like day one when you use it, you always check the source data. So we answer the question and then we have a link to the source data. So you click on that link, you can see, did it answer the questions appropriately? We have thumbs up, thumbs down buttons so you can kind of give feedback and improve the prompts and the model and that kind of thing. So day one, you do a lot of that. And then the rest of your experience is like, this is great. It's really tailored toward me. So if I'm a cardiologist or a nephrologist, I can ask the questions in my context and really get, the answers that pertain to me. So it's a terrific level of customization and personalization that's difficult to do in a hardwired, user experience.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like you just described how you build the trust, right? Because I think we all do that when we adopt technology. When we first start, we're digging into everything.
Yeah.
Get it right? Do I trust it?
Yeah, It's like meeting a new person.
Yeah.
That you don't know anything about, and you've heard bad things about them in the news. So that they sometimes lie or hallucinate or whatever.
There's some risk.
So you kind of get to know that person. So I think there's a few days of that and then you're off to the races. Really.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, you talk to a lot of people. You look at it, a lot of what's happening in the industry. What do you think is kind of the bigger picture of where AI is headed, and what should CIOs in particular be doing now to make sure they're ready for everything that's coming? Because I think we're still at the beginning. I don't know.
Yes, I would say that.
Like, what can they? Where do you see it headed, and what should CIOs be doing?
Yeah, well, if you think of the Gen AI journey, let's say, so this first part is using Gen AI to write. Let's say, write me a SOAP note from this audio, write me an answer to this question, that kind of thing. It's sort of the way we use it as consumers. So the next phase is agentic AI, as you know, it's all the buzz out there. But I think the impact of that is that the AI will be able to do things. So if you say, hey, I need to admit this patient, can you find a bed, and can you get the pre-auth, and can you do all these things for me? And then an agentic AI can run off and like try and schedule a bed, schedule resources, fire off a prior auth, these kinds of things. So it can start to do at least our hope is the administrivia of healthcare, that it can start to get things done, not just write an answer to your question. So that's the next couple years, let's say. We have a couple years probably still of kind of the first phase of writing. But I think right after that will be, what can agentic AI, what can this approach really do for us? The key thing there, all the keys of phase one will apply to the agentic AI phase of trust, human in the loop, all that good stuff. But the key to phase two is kind of interoperability and connection with your systems, because you're going to want the AI environment to be connected to the systems of record that you have running, so it can get stuff done, so it can schedule appointments or write the patient an email or those kinds of things. So connectivity, getting your data foundation right, those are all going to be as important as the AI tool itself.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's such an exciting time, not because of AI, but to your point, we have AI, we have the data, we have the connectivity. We have a cell phone in our pocket. We can talk to anyone.
Yes.
It's a confluence of all of these technologies that allows it to do special things. If we just had AI that couldn't communicate with the patient, it wouldn't be nearly as powerful, right?
I mean, I think of AI so far as like, if you think of a body, it's just the head. It can listen and it can talk, but it can't really do anything and it can't really get anywhere. But this next phase will sort of give it arms and legs and connect it into the whole system. And I think that's where we take it to the next level. It gets more powerful and such. But you're right. It's not just the AI. It's like how we manage the rest of the environment, the data, the interoperability, the systems, the partnerships with vendors, how we validate. I mean, there's a lot to this equation besides just the goodness of OpenAI or Anthropic and all the good work they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Don, I love talking to you. I love learning from you. I think you're the analogy king. I love that. That was perfect. So thanks so much for taking time to talk with us. And thanks everyone for watching and listening.
Very good. Thanks, John.
If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcast applications. Thanks, Don.
Very good. Thank you, John.